Okay, guys, welcome to another edition of Thinking Caps. And in this edition, we're actually going to talk about COVID. How could we not talk about COVID right now in late March? But specifically, we want to talk about what brands and marketers are doing right now in reaction to this. I'm joined with, as always, our CMO, Richard Jones. Richard, how you doing?
I am doing good.
Staying
Staying
safe
healthy.
at home?
Yeah, safe at home, locked up and isolated, trying to get over this.
All right, good. Well, I hope everyone's staying safe. I just wanted to say that our employees are safe. We do rounds throughout the day. Our teams are doing well. We hope everyone who's watching is making it way through there. But let's dive in here. Let's get right to the meat of the potatoes. A lot of brands are doing a lot of things. Let's talk about some of the good things here. Unilever, a new client to CHEETAH Digital. What do you have on them? What do they have going on right now?
Well, I mean, look, a lot of marketers are doing a lot of great things to react to the COVID-19 health crisis. But, you know, special props really has to go to Unilever. This week, they made, which I think is the biggest donation that I've seen. The CEO, Alan Jope, announced on Tuesday that he placed 100 million euros in aid for products such as soap, sanitizer, bleach, food for charities, etc. About half of that going to the COVID action platform of the World Economic Forum. Now, that itself is a massive donation, but he also pledged 500 million euros in cash flow relief for suppliers and retail customers, which includes credit for small retailers to help them protect jobs and early payment, which we know is a big issue right now.
Definitely. Cash flow is a huge thing. I'm sure it's on everybody's mind, big and small. Unbelievable. Big brand, does big, good things. So
yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of major brands out there that have got a huge amounts of investment in advertising, sponsoring sports events and stuff like that, which are now obviously shut down or postponed. So it totally makes sense to divert that cash where possible to actually help those that are being impacted by the crisis. And so I think a really smart move by Unilever, and one that the public are going to warm to and react to. There's another industry segment, one that we serve significantly. So we very much feel their pain, and that's the restaurant industry. With all the shutdowns that we've had, that industry is being severely impacted. There are some things that folks are doing to actually react to that. But, according to Technomic, the overall food service industry is currently expected to see year-over-year declines of between 11 to 27%. So that is a major hit. We know restaurants have shut down completely, but many others have also made the switch to drive-through, carry-out, and delivery models, which I think is going to pick up the longer the isolation and the lockdown continues in many markets. And the one thing that I wanted to highlight was how a whole series of different restaurant and food service producers, people like Panera Bread, Noodles and Company, the Habit Burger Grill, Lemonade, etc., have got together to really promote last Friday, March the 24th, as being the great American takeout. And so they're doing kind of this push around Takeout Tuesdays. I think a lot of folks have got behind that, and definitely want to encourage our viewers to go out there and support the restaurant industry with the takeout and the delivery model during this health crisis.
Yeah, I mean, we're all impacted, right? That we have to eat 3 times a day, and a lot of us eat takeout where we can. This is huge. And I want to note, we're following this. In fact, our content team is on top of all these verticals that we're going to talk about today, and all the topics, loyalty, messaging, privacy, all the things that marketers were worried about until this crisis hit. And there is one blog titled "Until We Dine Out Again" that Brittany wrote from our team. That's great. If anybody's looking for more ideas and examples, including there's some charts in there that show the decline in bookings at restaurants. And then we have clients like Donato's Pizza, who's being very, very clear on how they're using takeout and contactless delivery and things like that. And then also, we're working with some clients on the loyalty side who are starting to double rewards points and things like that. They're really starting to give incentives and give people that comfort of mind that when this is over and when this does pass, which it will pass, there's going to be rewards on the other side. So there's some really great brands doing some great things, and we'll be covering that on our blog. You should check that, at least a couple times a week.
Well, let's switch to another industry, to another one of our clients, AB InBev. Not obviously quite, not quite hit in the same way that restaurants are. I think in many ways there's probably going to be quite a lot of ordering of alcohol beverages as people, can't go out in the evenings, can't do anything in the evening, so they may well fare well pretty well out of it. But they're doing some clever marketing, and I wanted to highlight some of those things. So, one of the things that I think a lot of marketers are actually struggling with is, okay, in this new environment, in many ways, you've got a captive audience. People are isolated at home, they have time on their hands. We've already seen that in terms of the media consumption figures have dramatically risen. So how do you actually adjust your marketing to address this new captive audience online at home? And Bud Light is one of the brands doing something, and they created this, sponsored this virtual concert on Friday, which I thought was a pretty interesting idea. So there's been plenty of pop stars that have done virtual concerts on their own accord, on YouTube to help out and engage fans. And so Bud Light have really kind of got behind that. And on Friday night, they sponsored its first Bud Light Dive Bar Tour Home Edition, featuring country music star Jake Owen. And the show, which Owen performed from his house, was streamed on his live on his Instagram page. It carried a sparse branding. The most noticeable plug was a pinned message saying live at the @Bud Light Dive Bar Tour House Edition, come have some beers and hang out with us, which I think is important. Brands shouldn't be making this crisis all about themselves. And by about 10 p.m. Eastern time, the show drew about 4,000 live viewers. The show obviously was free, but Owen and Bud Light solicited donations to the American Red Cross, which was a great thing to do. And it also featured a cross promotion with alcohol delivery service Drizzly, which gave people $5 off their orders with the promo code Bud Light. And I think it's a pretty interesting campaign. So, props for them. But AB InBev as a whole has also, come up with doing a whole bunch of stuff. And I'll just highlight one or two things that they're doing here. So there's the Natty Light Commencement 2020, where they hosted they are hosting an online commencement ceremony for all of this year's college graduates whose universities have shut down. So bringing in celebrity speakers and music and hosting it via Facebook Live with a registration form to have students' name read during the ceremony and a meme generator to actually get some viral promotion of the experience. There's a foster a dog, get free beer, which Bush has teamed up with the local shelters. You might have seen that one, to offer families and couples taking in senior dogs for fostering during the COVID crisis, which I think is, a fantastic thing to do. Another one I really love is the Corona Cleanup. Corona Canada is hosting community cleanup events this summer, helping schools, community centres and other places of business reopen successfully after the COVID crisis. So we're seeing the alcoholic beverage brands coming up with some fun ways to drive engagement. And I would say, really, if you're not engaging people in this opportunity, there is a real danger to that, because other brands are getting in there and figuring out ways to drive engagement, even if they're in industries that are severely impacted, to engage this captive locked audience online in fun, engaging, interactive ways. And we've been lucky to be involved in a lot of that with the CHEETAH Experiences team.
Yeah, coming from a former client perspective, now in-house, I know what the experiences can do, and it doesn't amaze me that these things are happening. It amazes me that people are moving forward, but it doesn't amaze me that these things are getting into market quickly, because with over 400 experiences in my belt, I know in less than 24 hours, you can spin things up. So I know the PGA Tours is spinning up things. I mean, these are all clients of ours. There's some gaming brands that are out there actually helping people interact at home. Sports teams, I mean, think about that world. No more games, no more stadiums full with people. They're actually engaging these people online. And the experiences platform that CHEETAH has, you can spin these things up incredibly quickly. You can give somebody something to do, a fun, engaging experience that's, distracting them from the day-to-day quarantine. So I applaud all these companies for doing it. It's not difficult. It actually happens pretty quickly. So
Well, I mean, you mentioned sports teams. Whilst the ticket sale revenue has obviously been shut off in a lot of markets where the football leagues have actually closed, or the basketball leagues, whatever, have shut down. Just take something like soccer. We work with a whole variety of different Premiership teams in the UK, and different top leagues in France and Spain and various other places. And those top tier teams, we've shown that doing interactive experiences, quizzes, sweepstakes, instant wins, fun interactive things, challenges, scavenger hunts, all sorts of things that they can do with their fans, spot the ball contests, vote for your favorite goal of the season, all these types of things, actually add fans into the marketing database, because there's a lot of people consuming free content out there, maybe, paying through their service provider to watch games or the rest of it. But the football company or the sports team doesn't actually know who that individual is until they get them into the database. Obviously, buying tickets is one way, but most of these sports teams have very large global audiences, and really the ability to merchandise that audience is to discover this unknown group of fans and turn them into known fans into the database in order to be able to merchandise them, sell them new shirts or the rest of it. And we know that on average, every net new name into the database that we get for these sports teams, they monetize them on average about $100 per net new name per year. So it's the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, that's a lot of these teams. That's a shirt and a mug and a scarf. You've got your $100 a year. So if I was a sports team now, knowing that my ticket sales have gone off, I would be aggressively creating experiences to build my database for two reasons: engage my fans, right? Keep them fans, whilst the content isn't being produced because the games are shut off, and also get that names in the database so that you can start to really, drive material revenue. And to give it some scale, we add millions of net new names into the databases of these sports teams, sometimes millions a year in some cases. So we're talking 100 million plus revenue for discovering who your fans are on a global basis.
Yeah, look, I'm going to go beyond. I'm just going to say it spans all verticals. So great for sports. Hotels right now should be, using influencers. I mean, a lot of these beach locations, media publishers. If you have any social influencing, you shouldn't really stop that down. You should ramp it up. Use their audiences. Get their audiences into some fun, engaging, even if it's just short-term, distracting experience where you're collecting that data. To your point, because that data. Look, we have reams of content that our viewers can go back and look at, right? Why do you want first party and zero party data? Why do you need to build your database? Cookies crumbling, walled gardens are more powerful. You want to be able to bring your data to those platforms. Take this time as an opportunity to think outside the box, get out of your typical marketing plans and think, how can I execute now? What can I do within 2 weeks that gets my fans, the followers of my influencers, my other marketing dollars, make it work for me to collect that database. So,
we talk about building out the database and then understanding people motivations and desires and being able to personalize messaging and marketing to them. But in this COVID-19 health crisis, I'm going to give you another example of a customer which is really using the ability to deliver these experiences as a force for good. So very, very quickly, in the last couple of days, we've been working with Shell Retail on something that's going to be launched very, very shortly, which is one of the problems that we have with COVID-19 is we've got a situation where people are rightly somewhat scared and they've been panic buying food, which is a real problem, because it's a real problem for key workers, health workers, etc., who are in unimaginable pressure, very long days, and they're coming home and there's nothing left in the supermarkets to grab a meal. And so Shell Retail are working with a set of brands to actually create a set of an experience basically that allows health workers to collect meal packs from the Shell Retail forecourts. And so they're staffing up to do that. They're using CHEETAH experiences for people to register and order the kind of click and collect of their meal pack. But that's an example which is super necessary with what's going on to keep our key workers being able to get access to food when they're under severe pressure. And I think that type of marketing we need to see more of from brands. It's a really, really great initiative, and I hope they're able to scale it.
Hey, look, I'm going to tell you from experience, you're working with global brands, Shell, big company doing really big things with a net positive result. And I think that project was greenlit and in production in less than a day and a half, like 36-hour turnaround. So, if you're sitting there and you're thinking like, oh yeah, like it would take forever for us to get this together, give us a call. Like it absolutely, this stuff can happen overnight in some instances. So again, kudos to Shell for doing something really good. And we're excited to be part of that registration platform that's powering all that.
Yeah, 100%. Now I'll switch gears and give you another example of another company, which is not necessarily, this isn't really, doing stuff, for charity or to support people in their time of need during COVID-19, but nonetheless is a smart way to react to essentially a very serious situation and a hit to revenues. So there is a direct-to-consumer brand that has stores, Burrow, which sells furniture like sofas and tables, etc. And they, like others, have had to contend with closing shops during this health scare. Burrow opened its New York store in September 2018 and relocated to a larger location in February, only to have to be able to close it this week. So, like other D2C brands, they're perhaps in a bit of a better place to make the switch to online over some of the other folks. But they're basically taking their store specialists and actually allowing you to book appointments with them online for 15 to 30 minute sessions in order to answer any design or product questions. And we're going to have that's a very quick, smart thing to do, moving not just your ability to order online, but also building moving your people to people services online so that world can go on through this healthcare crisis.
Really, really smart. Again, D2C is always ahead of the game. So I love it. I hope some other larger brands are taking notice of the things that you can do when you try and be nimble, flexible, and agile.
Now, there are some marketing gotchas that folks are really kind of having to, curveballs that they're having to swerve because of the rapid onset of the COVID-19 crisis. And we've got a good example here for Cadbury's, massive global manufacturer.
I love Cadbury eggs.
Yeah, me too. I love Cadbury's chocolate. Been brought up on it. My brother used to work there. He used to actually run all the equipment in the factories globally for Cadbury. So actually did a work experience in Cadbury's for 2 weeks. It was the first ever work experience that I ever did. Great company. But they were like others in a situation where they'd created some advertising that was airing and then suddenly was not the right thing to be airing through no fault of their own. But they had this UK Easter campaign, which featured an older man, planning an egg hunt for his children, which in the light of social distancing, because the ad featured the kids coming around his house and basically searching for the eggs with him, a little girl and a teenager, just with social distancing, it just wasn't appropriate. So they had to pull that, which was unfortunate. But they're not the only the only company that is having to change tactics. Another one here, McDonald's, which I think is really interesting. It managed to draw some flack from Bernie Sanders, of all people, because McDonald's basically created a new version of their kind of logo, the golden arches, and actually separated the arches to sort of promote social distancing. And, Bernie Sanders here comes up with a tweet: at McDonald's, give your workers paid sick leave, instead of changing your logo. So, there are some dangers with doing something which is really about you and doesn't necessarily have that charitable component attached to it.
Yeah. No, it's always a slippery slope, whatever the opportunity or the issue at hand. Sometimes you get away with it and sometimes you get hammered on it. But yeah,
it's tough. Now I got
safety. I mean, last week we had Scott Cunningham. If you want to talk about brand safety and have an expert opinion, you might want to look up Scott Cunningham, who's navigated these kinds of issues for brands when going to market. But yeah, they're going to be out there.
And now we talked about a couple of different industries here. I want to just flip over to talk about an example from the media industry, which is one of our customers, Crown Media, that are doing a number of different things to respond to that. And I like what some of the things they're doing. I think they're kind of interesting, kind of fun. So one is they're doing ebook giveaways, right? A free download of their beloved Hallmark stories to keep people entertained at home. That's a great, simple way for them to actually build some loyalty with their consumers. And on Ad Age, front page of Ad Age today, there's a big story around Cantor Research, which really looks at how consumers really do expect brands to be helpful during this crisis. So I think that's go to Ad Age, check out the story. I think it's pretty interesting. But this is one way that a media company is able to do that. They created a reveal calendar countdown for series that were finished filming prior to COVID and are set for upcoming releases. Obviously, a lot of people are going to be binge watching TV, so that's a good way to interject some fun and some interactivity into the upcoming series, and they're associating that with exclusive, video content and desktop and mobile wallpapers and podcasts to talk about the shows. They're doing a hashtag Lights for Life social wall campaign. With the global movement, some of you may have seen this in the news. There's a global movement about putting holiday lights back up on houses to sort of spread joy during this period. And Hallmark is encouraging their audience to join in and share their photos in a UGC gallery. I guess it probably depends on your view of Christmas lights on houses, but I think it's fun. It's an engaging campaign. And then the last thing that I saw they were doing is they were hosting watch parties, right, for their content with a UGC contest for specifically started for When the Calls Heart series, and they were giving away a Skype session with the stars of the show as well. So trying to drive that interactivity, the user-generated content to connect people online, with things that they're able to do whilst this lockdown continues. So yeah, some good little tidbits of what folks around the world are doing as marketers react to COVID-19.
Yeah, I gotta add one more to media because I really, really like this one. And this one was pre-COVID, but it actually is really hitting its stride, pun intended, right now because people are at home consuming more content. The PGA Tour created an experience that was basically some iconic moments that happened in the Players Championship in the past. And they have this interactive experience that fans could go to and look at. There's several different famous scenes that have happened in Players Championships in the past, like a turtle was involved, a seagull got involved, and some other things. But not only that, they have a quiz. So they quiz you about how many, who's won more than 3, Players Championships, how many were hosted, how many courses. So it's this cool fan engagement suite. And like I said, it was built before this crisis, but right now interaction is through the roof. They actually have something in market that's interactive because there are no real, new live content. If you think about the NHL and all these games and the NFL and everything that might be affected, think about how you can pivot your media company, even if you're just a media publisher with, copy or daily magazine online. How can you actually create engagement, sweepstakes, give away a bunch of things? And I'll give kudos to the PGA. I had some visuals to show you there. So another good example of a media company having the right time marketing that just happened to get them through this crisis, and great engagement there.
Yeah, the last thing that we wanted to finish up with on Thinking Caps this week was deliverability, right? And getting messages out to people as part of this COVID crisis. It's staggering how, and I can understand it, right? There's huge pressure on a lot of people having to react very quickly, but it's staggering some of the mistakes that people are making as they're responding to the crisis and sending stuff out to their customers. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. So, as many as our viewers will know, email is a push technology, right? But sending an email message, especially if it's sent en masse, doesn't really guarantee that it reaches all the recipients efficiently and quickly, right? This is the notion of deliverability. And so I just want to touch on the 5 biggest errors that you should avoid in the coming days. Number 1, sending every message to everyone in your database, right? So, sending to all your subscribers, regardless of their engagement with your brand, is not a good practice. Never has been a good practice, and it certainly isn't a good practice during a crisis like COVID-19. This can permanently tarnish the reputation of the sender to the point of triggering massive spam filtering, even blockages and the rejection of your future sendings. Especially right now, this would be very damaging to your brand. So number 1, don't send everything to everybody. My inbox has been full with messages from brands that I may have given my email to 3 or 4 years ago, and they're suddenly now emailing me, telling me that I care. It's the first I'd heard of them for a while. Not good practice.
Yeah, I mean, look, that should be an always-on approach. You should always be looking at your deliverability no matter what. And what's unfortunate is some brands don't think about that, and they are sending right now, and they don't know the long-term effects of their IP address, reputation going down and subsequent spend. So it's also why I love our mantra of get more first-party data, get more zero-party data where you can understand affinity, and now you can segment those sends. If you know that they're male and female, everyone understands that. But if you really know your primary drivers, your primary highest lifetime value customers versus some that need to be nurtured still, think of all the different ways you could segment your audience and get these sends out there in staged units. It's really going to help you.
Yeah. Number 2, all right, of the 5 things you really want to avoid, starting a reactivation campaign now. Just like with a full subscriber list, mass mailings to inactive contacts genuinely drive hard bounces and recycle spam traps. Say goodbye to the good reputation that you have spent time building over the years. Today, more than any other time, is not the time to start cleaning up your contact bases. So, as you say, segment, target, active contacts only. That's the way to go.
Yes.
Number 3, launching a new cadence right now at this time is not necessarily a good idea. The notions of consistency is very important for deliverability. If your sending habits are suddenly turned upside down, especially your volume of messages sent and the frequency of sending, your messages are highly likely to be filtered as spam. So this is already considered as a spammy behavior in normal times. So imagine when everyone's doing it at the same time. So don't launch a new cadence.
I'll give you a great example, Richard. I just did a quick search while you were talking about that. I have 594 messages in my inbox since March 11th with the word COVID in it. So, and I was just glancing over some of them, and these are brands I have not heard for in a long time, and I'm seeing multiples from that brand. So, point 2, don't break your cycle, and point 3. Really come together right there. I mean, a lot of brands are breaking these taboos, and it's going to hurt them in the long run. So give some serious thought to these 5 tips that we're sharing right now. They're real.
Yeah. Number 4, I think is really interesting. Don't put the words coronavirus and COVID-19 in the content of your message.
I trumped you. I was ahead of you, but absolutely do not.
Yeah, it's going to get you caught in spam traps right now. So, just be very, very careful of what you're actually doing in order to make sure that your messages are getting through. And then the last point I want to make isn't actually a point around what to avoid, right? It's really around something to consider. Everyone is hammering email messages out with COVID-19, and they're creating new cadences, and they're doing things which are getting them in deliverability trouble. But there is an opportunity to use another channel, which I think has real pertinence today, and that is SMS. We're in a crisis situation. SMS is a great vehicle to connect through. Most of the markets where COVID-19 has really hit sort of critical mass have over 100% penetration of SMS. It's standard capability in all the phones we have in our pockets. You're going to get huge deliverability with SMS compared to email. So very, very useful for getting critical messages out to your audience. We've already seen a set of our customers using SMS for these very, very critical messages to get out to their audience, particularly in different sectors like healthcare and government, etc. So I would encourage all marketers during this crisis to really look at SMS. We are going to have a future podcast from Andy Gladwin, who is a absolute veteran in the mobile industry, to really talk about how to use SMS, tips and tricks in the coming couple of weeks. So watch out for that.
Yeah, excuse me, absolutely. And check our blog, because there are specific SMS content up there. In fact, Andy authored something that's up there right now that's really, really helpful. And I personally love SMS. My previous life, when I was managing multiple clients, I've sent millions. And not only is right now a great time to have SMS and be using it, but it actually drives sales. You can literally go from ingest of an unknown customer, get them into your database. If they're providing an optional mobile number, you can use that mobile number to drive unbelievable sales. So really encourage you to look at SMS. And again, the CHEETAHdigital.com/blog, it's right at the top of our homepage. You can find tons of info in that blog, and SMS is one of them. Great tips here today.
Well, that's a wrap on the how marketers react to COVID-19.
Well, listen, I have some self-serving plugs that I'm going to put. And if you're still with us at this end of it, we have a webinar that's coming March 31st. If you're watching this after March 31st, fear not. It is available online. It's a global study that we commissioned. It's the consumer point of view on all sorts of topics. Privacy, what are they willing to give you? What kind of data will they give up? And what's the value exchange they expect in return? Richard, you've been hitting value exchange for a long time. This study has some great insights. Also across messaging, when do they want to be messaged? How, which channels, etc. Loyalty, what do they expect in a loyalty? I'll give you one tip. Over 85% of Americans alone in this 6-country report breakdown, over 80% of Americans have more than one loyalty app on their phone or in their pocket. So if you don't have a loyalty program, you're going to want to see this report and understand what they're thinking about. Also, we talk on a bunch of other topics, social data, privacy, how has privacy incidents affected things.
Let's make the point. I think, this research, which has all been collected in the last 2 months whilst we've been in the shadow of the COVID-19 crisis. So this, if you want to get your fingers on the pulse of how consumers want to be engaged with by brands, the channels that you should be using, what's going to foster loyalty, these are things that you need to know about as a marketer in order to make sure that your marketing strategy is in touch with the consumer during this period where attitudes are potentially changing.
Great point. So go to our website. There's a ton of blogs. It's all over our website. You can register for the webinar. And like I said, if you're watching this after the 31st, we also have some pages there where you can actually download the free webinar video and the report in its entirety. So cool. Well, listen, thanks for coming from the safety of your own home. I'm the only employee in the Denver office today, so I am in the studio, safe and sound. Everybody stay safe. Wash your hands. Richard, stay safe.
Thank you, sir. I will do.
Okay. Thanks, people. We'll see you on the next Thinking Caps. By the way, you can find us on Apple iTunes. So go search Thinking Caps. You get all of our previous episodes.